You know, we think of love as this safe, wonderful thing, a connection. But what happens when that gets twisted? When someone's devotion is used as a weapon, turning them into a predator's most dangerous tool? That's what we're getting into today, this terrifying place where love becomes a license to kill. Just listen to that. That isn't a suggestion. It's not some crime of passion. It's a cold, calculated command from a man named Tracy Humphrey to the young woman he had under his thumb. And that single chilling instruction, it gets right to the very dark heart of what we're talking about. So that's the big question, right? How on earth does someone in what looks like a loving relationship end up as the instrument for their partner's revenge? Well, to figure that out, you really have to start with the men who are pulling the strings. All right, so first up, let's talk about these master manipulators, because they aren't just partners. They are, for all intents and purposes, puppet masters. And even though their stories might look different on the surface, you're gonna see they all follow a disturbingly similar blueprint for control. You know, the men behind these crimes can seem like total opposites. On one side, you've got a calculated guy like Tracy Humphrey, a fitness instructor. And on the other, you have a chaotic rebel like Charlie Starkweather. But here's the thing. Whether they're methodical or just pure impulse, when you peel it all back, the dynamic is exactly the same. It's about one person's mind completely overwhelming another's, all because of a deep, deep need for power. And this quote right here just nails the strategy. You see, it isn't about finding a partner, it's recruitment. The whole goal is to find somebody who is so malleable, somebody so desperate to be told they're worth something that they can be reshaped into anything, even a killer. Okay, so if these guys are the hunters, then who are their targets? I mean, what makes a person so vulnerable to this kind of insane manipulation? Let's take a look at the psychology of the women they deliberately choose. A really clear pattern starts to emerge when you look across all these cases. You see extreme youth. I mean, Carol Ann Fugate was only 14. You see a history of trauma, like with Christine Paola, who was relentlessly bullied for her stress-induced alopecia. But the one thread that ties them all together is this profound lack of self-worth and an unstable home life. It creates this huge void that these men are just waiting to fill. This quote pretty much sums it up perfectly. This is not a partnership of equals. It's a predatory dynamic. You have a dominant, often much older man who targets a young woman who's looking for the authority and protection she never got at home. And just like that, he becomes her entire world, which is exactly where he wants her.
So you've got the manipulator and you've got the target. But how does he actually flip that switch? How does he turn his loving girlfriend into a cold-blooded murderer? Well, the case of Tracy Humphrey gives us a terrifyingly clear roadmap for how it's done.
I mean, just look at how deliberate this is. First, he completely isolates 19-year-old Ashley. He's her trainer, her lover, her only source of validation. Then he starts to rebuild her identity from the ground up, making her totally dependent on him. Step 3, he creates a common enemy, his ex-girlfriend Sandy Rezo, who he paints as this huge threat to their future together. And then get this, he marries Ashley in the gym just to seal the deal. And finally, from the comfort of his own couch, he gives the order to kill. The level of planning here is just bone-chilling. This was not some spontaneous crime of passion. Humphrey literally gave her a murder kit, complete with a disguise to make her look like a man. His goal was to throw the police completely off his trail by turning his new wife into an anonymous male attacker. A total erasure of who she was, all for his crime. 8. Ashley Humphrey shot Sandy Rezo 8 times. Think about that. That's not one panic shot. It's a brutal, sustained attack, all carried out for the man who controlled every aspect of her life. In this case, the manipulation was crystal clear. But what happens when those lines of control get a lot blurrier? This is what 14-year-old Carol Ann Fugate said. After a week-long murder spree with her boyfriend Charlie Starkweather that left 11 people dead, including her own family, she claimed she was just a terrified hostage, forced to go along with it all. But the investigators, they saw a completely different story. They saw a willing participant, maybe even a killer herself, who they described as being just as aggressive and hostile as Charlie was. And this right here brings us back to that razor's edge. Was she a hostage to his madness? Or was she a willing co-author? In the end, of course, the law has to step in and draw a line somewhere.
After the crimes are over and the manipulators are caught, what actually happens to the women who were holding the gun? So the legal outcomes do vary a bit, but the verdicts, they are consistently severe. You can see right here that juries convicted all of them of murder. Ashley Humphrey got 25 years, Christine Paul Lilla, Jennifer Hyatte, Lisa Lambert, all sentenced to life in prison. The one real exception here is Carol Ann Fubate. She was also sentenced to life, but she was eventually paroled back in 1976, and to this day, she maintains that she was innocent. So while some of these cases definitely leave a little room for debate, others are just brutally clear. The case of Lisa Michelle Lambert is one of those. She was so consumed with jealousy that she stalked, terrorized, and ultimately murdered 16-year-old Lori Sho. And as Lori was dying in her mother's arms, her last words just cut through any possible ambiguity. Michelle did it. And that brings us to the ultimate, really unsettling question. There is absolutely no doubt that these women were manipulated, they were preyed on, and they were psychologically broken down. But they also made choices. They were the ones who picked up the weapon. They were the ones who took a life. So we're all left to grapple with this. In the shadow of that kind of profound control, where does our own accountability truly begin?